let's revisit the concept of forward engineering to create SQL scripts. And this time, let's see how we can use forward engineering to generate alter table scripts. So let's return to our MyWebDB database and open the ERD. And let's make a modification on the products table. Let's add two attributes here. Let's add two fields. Let's have a price field, and let's make this a decimal with 3 characters to the left and 2 to the right. That's a total of 5. And we specify how many to the left. So 2, 5 minus 2 is 3. That will give us 3 to the left of the decimal place, 2 to the right of the decimal place. That's what we're looking for. And that's fine. And let's do one other thing. Now we have the properties window open here. If not, we could right click and look at the properties to open that. And let's change the default value or binding. Let's put a default value in here, 999. And so when we create a new record, if we have not otherwise specified a value for that field, it's going to put 999 in there as a default. And let's go ahead and add a date added field, and let's make this a date time 2. And date time 27 is fine. And notice that I am allowing nulls in these fields. The parallel exercise that I'm working from was silent on whether or not nulls should be allowed. My instinct is that probably that's a poor idea. Why would we have an item that we don't have any price for? Why would we have a date added that was null or empty? As a matter of fact, looking at what we just discovered about the default binding, if we look at the property window, here is the default value or binding. Could you bind that to, I'm going to leave this as an exercise for you to explore, but could you bind that to an expression that would put a default date in, and probably the date you would want is the date as of the date a given record is added. So could you do get date and bind that to the function? That's a great question. I'm going to leave that for you to explore, test that out. But that might be something that's very useful in the future. Okay, I've left it alone for now. And now that we've got this, we can go ahead and save it, and it's going to forward engineer and modify our tables. But we want just the alter script, just the changes that we've made, so that we can send that SQL out to various production copies of this database. Maybe we're a software company, we have 10,000 customers that use our database, and we've decided to update this feature and add more attributes. So we need to send an update package out. That's going to include the scripts to modify the database. How do we generate those scripts? So one quick way to do that, you can simply write the alter table scripts directly and test them, but we're trying to generate them automatically. So if I right click here and say, generate the change script, what are the changes that I just made? And when I look at this script, 2 of the things I want to see are fields that are being added. And a third thing is a new constraint to make a default to 999. So here I see an alter table statement, and it is adding the price, decimal 52, nulls allowed, date added, date time, or date time 2, and nulls allowed, and that's fine. And let's see, there's our constraint being created for 999 for price. And so yes, that is what we were looking for. Okay, do you want to save the changes, the change script to a text file? Absolutely, I do. That was kind of the whole point. So let's say yes, and I'll put it over. I have a temporary directory I keep for messing around, stuff that I want to work with ephemerally, just for a few minutes. And so I'll put it on my kill this directory. And let's change the name of that to be somewhat more meaningful. So let's call it alter products price and date added. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And now if we go ahead and save and commit the changes that we made in our ERD, it's going to forward engineer those to the database. So let's go ahead and do that as well. Save it. Do you want to? Yes, I really do. And great. So it tells me that it's made those changes to the database. Let's close this and see if that's true. Okay, so let's take and refresh our Object Explorer window, come back down into the database, open up the MyWebDB, and let's look at the tables. And here's the products table. Come look at the columns. And I see, I now have price 5.2, nulls allowed, date added, to date time 2, and nulls allowed. And let's take a look at, has it added a constraint for $9.99? Well, there's a constraint here. How do I see what that constraint does? Well, one nifty way to do that would be to right click it and say script the constraint add as the create statement. And let's take a look at it in the query editor window. And it should say something here about $9.99. And there it is. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, the purpose of this was to create that alter script, but in allowing it to forward engineer my copy of the database, it's already made those changes, and I'd really like to test that script. I could wipe this database out and run the create table script that we created in another video and put it back the way it was, and then add the new script. But let's be a little bit smarter about this. We can simply come here and drop this. Let's delete that. And okay. And let's delete that. And okay. And what about that constraint? Now I haven't refreshed the view, so it still shows that constraint is there, but is it really? Really? Let's test it. Okay, so if I say I'd like to delete that, and yeah, delete that. And it says, oh, can't do it. Why not? Well, if we look at it, it's because it's going to say it doesn't exist on this server. So what really happened there is when I deleted the attribute that the constraint was pertinent to, the constraint was automatically deleted. And so we could simply close this up, refresh it, expand it, take a look at the database again. And take a look at MyWebDB. And let's take a look at the tables. And that was the products table. And again, looking at the columns we had added are gone. And let's take a look at the constraints. No constraints. So yeah, it really had been deleted. It was just an artifact that was there. So that's all fine. So now let's test the script that we created. And let's look out for a gotcha in that. So let's file, open, file, and let's open our alter products price, data added SQL. Okay, now, if I have closed all the connections to the database, what is my context? Well, my context is certainly not, unless it has been set as the default for this whole SQL Server engine, my default context, my default database is not going to be MyWebDB. So if I try to run this, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. So let's add a statement to this alter script, table script, and just say use MyWebDB. And then we need to do one of two things, because use needs to be finished before we start running the next batch, the next part of it. So we could either come here and say go, or what I'm going to do is just use the semicolon, which separates the batch. And now I should be able to run this without any errors, and it should set the context to MyWebDB. So let's run it. And it claims that it worked successfully, but let's see what it actually did. So again, so we don't get caught by these artifacts. Remember, it doesn't bother to waste CPU cycles on refreshing the Object Explorer window unless you tell it to, because like, how would it know? Plus, if it was constantly refreshing, it would chew up a lot of bandwidth, waste a lot of CPU time. We don't need to do that. So it lets you manually refresh this. So let's just close that up, hit refresh, expand that back out, take a look at the databases. And if we take a look at the MyWebDB, at the tables, at the products table, at the columns. Lo and behold, yes, our price attribute has been added, decimal 52. Our date added field has been added, date time 2. And what about that constraint? Yeah, the constraint is back there as well. So I hope you find this useful, and it can be a real handy technique to help you to engineer alter table scripts.